Good afternoon, good morning. So 1 minute past the hour, and I think it's a good moment to start. The way organizations deliver applications today has fundamentally changed, but the way many IT admins manage them hasn't. If you talk to most IT admins today, one thing becomes very clear quickly. Application delivery has never been more complex than it is today. Organizations are managing SaaS applications, package applications, publish apps, virtual desktops, and increasingly cloud-based workspaces. Often all at the same time. Each of these technologies bring flexibility, but together they often introduce more operational complexity, higher management overhead, and long-term dependencies. And that raises an important question. How do you design an application strategy that actually reduces complexity instead of adding to it? That's exactly what we are going to explore today. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Morteza Steiki, and I'm responsible for Liquidware in the European team. Before we dive into the topic today, let me briefly introduce Liquidware for those who may not be yet familiar with us. Liquidware has been focused on the end-user computing and digital workspace technologies for more than 15 years, helping organizations simplify how applications and user environment are delivered across VDI, physical desktops, DaaS, and cloud workspaces. The company was founded in 2009 with our headquarters originally in Chicago and our development team in Atlanta. Today, we operate globally with a strong presence across Europe and APAC, and our European headquarters located in Amsterdam. Liquidware is also a privately held company, which is an important thing to mention because that allows us to focus on building solutions that solve real customer and partner challenges, rather than building products to satisfy the shareholders' expectations. Our focus has been always on helping IT teams reduce the operational complexity while providing users with a consistent workspace experience, regardless of where the applications are running. Our platform consists of 4 key solutions: a user environment management solution, an application management platform, and 2 digital employee experience solutions in the DAX space. But today, we will focus specifically on application management. Joining me today is Sander Noordijk, who recently joined the Liquidware team as the field CTO for EMEA. Sander brings extensive experience in the end-user computing space, and prior to joining Liquidware, he worked for VMware and later Omnissa, one of the leading vendors in the EUC space. Throughout the experience, he has worked closely with the organizations running large-scale workspace and VDI environment and has seen firsthand the challenges IT admins face when managing applications across modern hybrid infrastructure. Today, he will walk us through the key challenges organizations are facing and how they can rethink their application strategy moving forward. But before handing the mic to Sander, just a quick reminder for everyone joining. Feel free to drop your questions anytime in the Q&A box. During the session, we will address them as we go along, or we leave them to the end for the discussion. Sander, it's great to have you here. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Morteza. And welcome, everyone. So yes, today we're going to be diving deep into app modernization and how we can do that. But before we can go to the future, we should first see where we came from, right? And as Morteza mentioned, when I started in IT 20 years ago, the workspace was very different than the workspace we see today. So a workspace back then was a desktop machine that was under my desk in an office. It was only used for 6 to 8 hours during the day. And other than that, it was turned off. But after that, we moved into mobile workspaces, into laptops, into desktops that we could bring along. And the laptops meant that we needed to do delivery of applications and configuring that device remotely differently. Worked with VPNs and everything. Uh, Everything worked out. But after that, we went into consolidation, into a phase where everything was into VDI, into RDS, where we had vendors like Citrix, Omnissa, and Microsoft deliver virtual desktops, and we kept everything centralized into our own environment. And what's the big move after that? Well, of course, it's cloud computing, whether that is that VDI infrastructure that we move into the cloud or DaaS offerings like Windows 365, like Azure Virtual Desktop. That is all where we are currently today. But the real honest picture that it is not a diagonal line like this. The fact is that it's actually still all of these components. Desktops can be in the cloud. Some users are working with laptops that we now manage through modern ways, and that VDI environment still exists, either partially or something that we're moving into. And that meant we had to think a lot about how we deliver those applications as well. We started out by manual installations from physical media to scripted installations. But after that, I had spend a lot of time imaging machines with ghosts, creating exact replicas of the Windows machines with all of the applications on top of it. But it kind of grew into adulthood when we started using solutions like System Center, Configuration Manager, Altiris to really build up a machine and deliver applications out to that. And nowadays, everything is cloud-based, right? So we use solutions like a Microsoft Intune or Workspace ONE, Ninja One, whatever the solution is. And with that, we deliver these applications out to all of these endpoints, because that is quite the challenge, right? So what platform do we choose to deliver workspaces to all of these different scenarios? Traditional approaches to application management don't really align to this current hybrid environment anymore. Is a server-based computing solution the answer? It could be, because server-based computing offers the stability and trust that everything remains inside of your own data center, within your own the walls of your own company. But SBCs can also live in the cloud, so they're easily migratable from that point. But what about delivering natively installed applications to my endpoints? My SCCM cannot reach outside of the domain, so this lovely worker in the cafe, that laptop becomes unavailable. So that means that you have to add another solution. In this case, you would manage that with Intune. But that means that we now have two solutions that all deliver the same goal, to deliver applications. So that's two platforms to maintain. That's two platforms to train on. And that's also two platforms that require funding, will expand, and creep over time. After that, we can also consider offering these services through cloud desktops. But cloud desktops need to be scaled properly before you make that move, because lifting and shifting your current environment into the cloud can turn expensive quite fastly. So you have to figure out what is exactly being used and what are my requirements going into such a move, delivering that. You also have to think about, where do we store those applications? And more importantly, where is the data that comes with that application? We've seen cloud transitions fail because the distance between the application and the data was too far, and latency was tearing that experience apart. So if we look at the broad landscape of applications we now have, it's mostly in these categories, right? So the first and the easy ones are the SaaS applications, the modern applications accessible everywhere on any type of device, where we don't have to figure out the back end. Everything just works. But as we all know, not all applications can be delivered as SaaS applications or really lend themselves to be SaaS applications. So that brings us to native apps. These native applications can be installed on the endpoints, which means that they're highly compatible. But that also means that installing an application takes time, and that is kind of error prone, especially when applications are installed and removed and installed, as we will touch on. then the VDI desktop is still a great way to offer these applications, because we can publish the applications within the borders of our own data center, of our own company, with the data nice and close by. And this is still a solution we see often. However, they're quickly accessible, but there's still a different Windows environment from where they are coming from, which is also most likely a Windows environment, and that has always confused people. So maybe published apps is then a good solution as well. So published apps still uses that VDI backend, but it only displays the application as if it is running natively on the endpoint. And when I moved to macOS, I found my saving in here, because I was able to run Visio, for example, which is not a Mac app. It only exists for Windows, but I was able to run it as a published application running in a data center, but it appears as if it's running natively on my device with a nice icon in the dock and access to all of my files. So they could live side by side, because as much as we wanted and have tried to move everything to the SaaS applications, there's always going to be this one application or two applications within a company that the company heavily relies upon that is not updated anymore, and nobody dares to touch, because if you do, it'll probably fall over. But the last part, that's also a big talking point that we've seen a lot in companies, is AppV, right? Application virtualization by Microsoft. Still thousands of customers use this worldwide. Started out as SoftGrid in 2006, and it was great for making applications portable. You individualized every application with every dependency that it had and put it into a tiny bubble, meaning that you could have two versions of that same application side by side. However, Microsoft has been trying to get rid of it for quite some time. So at first they announced an end of life in 2018, then that moved to 2023, now to 2026. But then reverted back to that only the server component of AppV is reaching the end of life. So that means that companies can still make and edit AppV packages, but there's no server to deliver those packages out to the endpoint anymore. But you could keep using that solution. However, there's no more development. They're just keeping that solution alive. So that means we need to think of a solution that can deliver this, and also what we might be able to migrate off to. Taking a look at application strategy, we need to take three major things into account: risk, dependency, and cost. So risk is the obvious one. Applications are at the center of everything that we do. So whenever an application fails, that affects our bottom line. But we also need to think about where those applications reside. Changing an application strategy also comes with risk. So if a risk that we need to calculate, and if is that is how much we can save and optimize, does that weigh up against the risk of outages? And there's dependency. We either rely on a single vendor to deliver all of our applications with the limitations that come with that, or we have to bring in multiple tools to deliver that same solution. So multiple platforms like Intune, Citrix, and other vendors, they might not cover all of your bases, or will lock you into an ecosystem, strapping you down and giving you less flexibility. And lastly, of course, cost. How much does delivering an application actually cost you? I'm talking about the licenses, but also packaging time, testing, maintenance of those applications and the platforms they're living on, delivering that application out to multiple platforms, but also keeping track of all of your licenses. Because we know that whenever you get the option to use a new application, you'll gladly do it. But how many people are still using that application after 3 months? And maybe you can recoup some costs of that. And I think the key for all of this is operational complexity. We now work with different app formats, with different installation times and different delivery methods that we need to keep track of. Let's take an example in server-based computing, right? So our goal is to reduce operational complexity and technical depth while supporting modern management. And if we look at VDI, an application can, of a delivery of Windows in applications in this case, can become quite complex quite quickly, because it seems that this Windows version is the same for everyone, but for all of my different departments in the company, they might have different needs and different applications that come with that. And in terms of a VDI environment, if we take a Citrix, Omnissa, Nutanix, if we deliver sessions like this, we deliver that Windows through an image. So that contains the Windows installation, but that also contains all of the installed applications. And as you can imagine, if we have different requirements for different departments, that means that there's multiple different images with different configurations of applications for every department. And that means that our IT administrator is constantly busy installing applications, updating applications, taking care of the Windows side for each of these images, updating agents, drivers, and all of the third-party stuff that comes with that. And that is just a part of that cycle. Let's take a look at one example for one application. Let's take Firefox, right? Major browser, comes with 13 major releases each year. And if we take into account all of the minor releases, so hot fixes and quick security updates, that comes to around 20 to 30 releases each year. Now, companies running on VDI cannot do 30 releases each year, so that's why they have the extended support release. So in 2025, the extended support release was 13 minor releases and 2 major releases, causing 15 change actions on that one application. And doing each of these actions means that you have preparation. You need to download the package. You need to read through the release notes. You need to check with your company policy. Then we have to spin up our image and make sure that the golden image is booted. Then we install the application. We fine-tune it to our liking. And then we have to seal everything back up and then deliver it out to our testing group so that the test users can try out and check if it is all right, make sure that the GPO doesn't break anything. And even if you want to go through full user acceptance testing, that can take a while. So if we take a look at those major releases, that comes to about 7 hours for each major release and around 3 hours for minor releases, totaling up to between 50 to 60 hours spent annually on just updating Firefox. So this is per application, but also per image. And that leads to companies not updating their applications often enough because it's just too much work. Because this is just one application, how can they deal with all of the rest? And that comes with a great piece of risk. Because did you know that around 60% of all cyber attacks come through non-patched or poorly patched software? So if we translate that back to our example with all of the applications and all of the different images that company takes, how can we do this better? What if we brought that amount of images back to one or maybe a handful to accommodate specific use cases that you would want to have in that image, just the base applications that everybody requires, and for the rest, well, we can use FlexApp. So FlexApps are individual application packages which we attach to the user settings. They contain all of the files and registry settings that are needed to run that application, and they're layered on top of the OS. So we're not installing the application. And traditional application installs, as you might know, they touch a lot of parts of the operating system. So your files are installed in program files, in app data, within your profile. It touches the registry. It may touch services and DCOM and DLLs that need to be registered. So especially when you remove applications, you will see that traces are always left behind, and that can interfere. And this is where FlexApp really comes in, because FlexApp are individual packages that are layered on top of the OS. And because of our filter driver, it seems to Windows as if it is installed natively. So it sees the files in C program files. It sees the settings in HKey local machine into the registry. All of the services are present. However, they are attached and do not touch the operating system. And this leads to cleaner images. It leads to fewer risks, easy implementation. And also because we are just using registry, files, and everything that is there, we have over 90% success rate on packaging these applications because they can be completely difficult as well. Most of the applications we can run. And as I said, these FlexApps are offered as virtual hard disks. So they're VHDX files, which can be mounted over the network or from a cloud storage, even to these more managed devices. And we can distribute them through our context-aware agent. So that means that we can deliver that application when they are needed or only to people with specific requirements that we set for that. We can also deliver that as a single executable with FlexApp1. That means that all of the requirements around it are packaged into that single executable, which we can deliver by hand, by USB, or through your modern managed solutions. And you can run that application as a Flex app the way just like the way it was packaged for your network installation. And important, we can deliver those applications at boot. So when the machine starts up at night, which can be handy for large installations in a VDI scale, for example, boot up the machines at 5, have all the applications attached, and then have them ready when people start using their machines when they log in. But we can also attach these applications at login, which means that they'll take a tiny hit while we wait for these applications to attach, but they'll be present as soon as they start the machine. And the last option is click the layer, which is basically on demand. So that means that our application appears in the session. So they have their icons in the start menu or on the desktop, but as soon as they start the application, that's when we attach the hard disk. So that takes around 2 seconds for the application to be attached, but that means that we save on the logon time to help our users get a better experience. And packaging these applications is incredibly easy and incredibly fast. You just need a machine that is representative of the endpoints that we are going to be serving, and we just need a file to install from. So that can be anything from an executable to an MSI, you name it. As soon as if you can install it on Windows, we can install it. We can record it in a Flex app because we can just keep track of the changes that are made into that installation. But we can also convert your existing packages. Say you already have a large set of AppV applications or MSIX, or maybe even app volumes. Those are applications that we can easily translate into FlexApp and deliver through the optimized way that we can deliver those here. And as I said, these applications can be easily modified. So as soon as you've packaged your application, you can open them up and we can see all of the files that are touched, all of the registry settings, drivers that are included, but also services. And this also gives us the flexibility to make changes to it. So if I forgot to disable the auto update service in my Firefox, I can just go into the package and remove that. Or I can add stuff. If a new license file is required for my installation, I just open the package, place the file into it, and then seal it back up again. And the next logon, my users have their applications. And applications can be complex as well. So maybe there's an order for things to be installed, or maybe there is some environment settings that we need to prepare for the application to work properly. Well, we can have scripts run with pre-activation or post-activation. That means that we can have some specific files that are present at present, or a pre-launch environment that we need to set up before the application is actually launched. Or maybe there's a cleanup script that we want to run when the application is disconnected from the session. We can easily get control with our package scripts. And once we've packaged up those applications, we can deliver them basically everywhere. As we said, through file shares on the internal network or through cloud storage to desktops that are not within the reach of our domain. So these Flex apps can then be published into VDI environments like Horizon or Addition even. And with a Citrix, for example, we're natively integrated into the Citrix Web Studio. So you can just select your app or your Flex app packages there and send them out to the endpoints. But we can take those same applications and move them to our cloud destinations. If we're going to Windows 365, to Azure Virtual Desktop or Amazon Workspace as core, those are desktop services we can attach our applications to as well. But then we'll just use cloud storage to deliver those. And the same goes for our physical machines, our modern managed devices, for where the biggest part of the Netherlands and Europe will probably choose Intune to deliver those. Well, we can deliver our solutions like that because there's a big advantage to that. Because Intune is pretty good at delivering settings and making sure that your baseline of your management on the physical device is set fine. And we can package our applications into the Intune Win format, upload it to Intune, and have Intune deliver that out to the endpoints, or have it available within the company, in the company store, in the company app. However, Intune is notoriously spotty when delivering these applications out because we're dependent on the devices checking in, leading to a 4 to 24-hour cycle before that package is actually installed. That also means that if something goes wrong, you have to go through that whole cycle again. So what we could do is add on top of Intune, and that is have Intune still manage the endpoints and do the stuff that it's good at, but have us deliver the applications. And that means in that case, we will not have to package our applications to Intune Win. That's already a win. But then we will upload it to a cloud storage, in this case, Azure Blob Storage, for example, and we have our agent deliver those applications out. And when we do that, those applications are available at the next login or at the next refresh. So the time to value is incredibly high with this, and it gives you a lot of control over the environment that we are working in. And as I said, what happens when our applications fail? So when applications fail, that can have a very, very big impact. And as I just mentioned, if you have to wait 4 to 40 to 24 hours for a new try of the application to be installed, that can become quite chaotic pretty quickly. And especially apps that are updated automatically can cause issues for organizations. You could think of recent examples where Chrome Enterprise broke because Google updated some APIs, and things like SSO and DLP and other corporate solutions just stopped working. Think of the CrowdStrike update that caused massive blue screens of death and outages with over 2024, grounding planes and reverting hospitals back to paper. Or maybe a less excessive example and not that big of a problem on the physical endpoint side, but a big challenge on the VDI was when Teams had an update that caused spikes in CPU. So that caused a big issue for VDI environments because there you're sharing these environments with other people, and those spikes really kill those environments, killing the performance, degrading call quality, and of course very much upping the stress on our help desks. But what if we deliver those applications with FlexApp? That would make it a lot easier, because then if we see that our Teams update is causing an issue, we just decouple that application and we just send back in the old one, leading to our people being able to work again. But app delivery by itself is not enough. We need to also control who gets our application and when do they get that application. So we can assign applications based on users or on computer levels, whether that is in the Entra ID or a domain Active Directory environment, whether those machines are domain joined or modern managed. We need to make sure that the right application is delivered to the right people at the right time. And the right time, again, we can do that at startup. We can also do that at login, or have those applications available under their fingers on demand as soon as they need it. But the most important thing is, what if that situation changes? If I'm using an application through a VDI environment on my laptop from the office, it's considered that I'm quite safe. But if I just close my laptop, I go home and I open it up again, or maybe I make a little break at a restaurant by the roadside, I open my laptop again and it reconnects. My whole security posture has changed because I'm coming from a different network, which cannot be checked. It might be some different reasons that we might want to reevaluate if that session is still valid, and if the applications and settings that are delivered to that endpoint, if they are in check. So that's where our context engine comes in. So our context engine is able to check out these conditions and reevaluate as soon as that happens. So as soon as a session disconnects and reconnects, but also as soon as an IP address changes or a host name changes, or maybe even a result based on a PowerShell action that we can pull out. If that situation changes and we need to reevaluate, deliver different applications, deliver a different set of rules to go along with those applications, maybe block access to sensitive stuff when we're on unsecured networks, that is all the stuff that we do in our context engine. And that comes from Profile Unity. So FlexApp goes hand in hand with Profile Unity. So at first we have it's our method to deliver the applications. So FlexApp 1, as I just explained about, but also we can do the traditional application packages as well. So you can use Profile Unity to deliver MSIX apps you maybe made the move to, or your AppV applications that are still present, or maybe you're coming from a VMware environment and you still have ThinApp isolated applications, or AppStream through Amazon. Those are all applications that we can deliver through Profile Unity with the added benefit of that context engine. So at its core, it is profile management, decoupling the user experience from the computer itself, making it truly portable, just as we do with applications in FlexApp. And it can include everything that we can configure in the user environment. So think about files, registry, services, but we can whitelist and blacklist applications. We can use privilege elevation on specific applications that need it. And be context aware, as I said. Use location, time, role, workspace type, and reevaluate when a connection drops. And these triggers are dynamic, meaning that they automatically load the right configuration when when a user opens a specific application, or when that situation changes. Let's look at an example. So we've been working for a while with a global insurance company who had a large VDI estate with over 800 applications. And those applications were predominantly managed through AppV. However, they found that many applications, especially the highly specialized ones, could not be packaged that way. So every application that could not be turned into an AppV package got its own additional image. And as you can imagine, as the amount of images grew, so did the burden to maintain those images. And it also caused a lot of risk because they were not able to update those applications as frequently because it became quite a monster. So they started looking at replacements for AppV, but they found that most products that they looked at were either too complex or the compatibility was insufficient. And as they have two large packaging teams, ease of use was a prerequisite. So they needed to be able to have a solution that didn't require any specialized knowledge. So they found FlexApp. And they took the approach of whenever an AppV application required an update, they would package it as a FlexApp package. And after a little while, they were able to drastically reduce the number of images. So they went from 45 images to 8. So they had no more hour-long installs on physical endpoints. They had no more endless images for these non-standard applications. But they also were pleased to find that application that they created worked across VDI, but also their physical mobile workspaces. And they were available offline and online. So as soon as an employee took a laptop on a plane, they were still able to work with those applications. And now, in the current situation, they use this to migrate. They migrated off that VDI environment into Windows 365. And because all of their applications were in FlexApp, they were able to bring all of their applications along for the ride. And a similar challenge arose with one of the academic hospitals in the Netherlands. They're running a mix of virtual and physical and cloud desktops. And according to Wim van Beek, the team manager, they said we wanted to make our workspace more efficient. And they were looking for a strategy that would adapt for all of their workspace types and adapt to future changes. And they found that flexibility within Liquidware solutions. But workspace is not just apps alone. As I said, it also brings a long part into application and user settings and computer settings that need to be delivered dynamically, especially in hybrid scenarios. And that was found by the municipality Haarlemmermeer, who chose Liquidware to replace Ivanti and let us take on their application challenges. And they make a striking point where they mentioned that most companies try to handle everything through Intune, but that doesn't always work. And they were very adamant that they needed to have changes be reflected on their endpoints instantly and not waiting these long cycles. And more recently, we worked with the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead, who were looking for an AppV alternative and chose us because it's a single solution that supports both laptops and their RDS environments. And they were using AppV, but they found that managing and updating those AppV packages have become very time consuming and resource heavy. Every version needed extended testing and repackaging with that. So when they moved to FlexApp, they found that what application updates that previously took hours or even days, they could make those now available within minutes. And I really love this quote where he wrote out of enthusiasm, where he said, well, we recently wanted to update a package and they just upgraded it. And within 20 minutes, the whole process was finished. Well, just think about how historically that would have taken them so much more time. And in the end zone, that it's just easy, intuitive, and it works. And I think that is where we want to go with our key takeaways. So taking it back, risk, dependency, and cost. We can see that traditional management just doesn't cut it anymore. Managing apps on multiple platforms requires multiple tools, but also money and hours. And we believe that by dynamically offering those applications, we can simplify management, but also reduce cost and bring back the complexity. Packaging an application in FlexApp means that we can deliver it everywhere, whether that is in Citrix, in AVD, and we can even enrich your Intune environment. So we're not here to replace, we're here to add on top of it. And these applications are allowed to be complex. Installation orders, pre and post activations that we might need to take into, and changes can be easily edited, making sure that updating your applications becomes quite seamless as well. And we can fit your tempo, which means that we can modernize your applications with FlexApp, but we can also deliver the remaining applications you still have in AppV packages or MSIX to that endpoint until they're able to make the move to your modern solution. And applications should be delivered with context. So if my situation changes, should an application remain on my endpoint? And if an application requires specific settings, it should be delivered alongside that application. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. I would love to hear if there are any questions from our audience.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sander, for the presentation. Just before we move on with, because there are questions coming, so please, after you have heard Sander's story, let the questions come. One thing, Sander, one thing I hear, so we hear more, quite often from the IT teams, is the real challenge is not necessarily delivering the applications, is managing them consistently across different environments. Sander, based on what you have seen in the field, mainly also from your Omnissa time, where do organizations typically start to struggle with application management?
Yeah, as you said, getting the application to the endpoint isn't a challenge. It's getting it ready to be distributed. So as I explained a bit, I've seen many companies fail in being able to keep up on track with updating all of their applications. So especially if you think about that, most environments are going to be hybrid. Think about VDI environments mixed with physical endpoints, and you all need to deliver those applications out to these endpoints. And that's why I think that a solution like FlexApp can definitely help with that, because we're taking the approach that we can package that application once and we can deliver that across all of these platforms.
Great, thanks. We still got a couple of minutes left, so we know there are loads of questions coming. We will handle them within the next 7 minutes. In case we have not, answered your question, rest assured that we will come to it through an email. A question raised up, Sandra, I think that's a good thing also with your experience. If organizations already have a modern management platforms like Intune, Workspace, platforms like Omnissa, Horizon, why is the application management still such a challenge?
Yeah. Well, I think it really comes down to flexibility. So if you're using a VDI platform and still installing all of these applications manually into this environment, having to maintain multiple images, that really becomes a struggle. And that's why we think that decoupling these applications really makes a big difference. If it comes to modern management through Intune, well, there are a couple of challenges there. First, you have to make sure that your application is repackaged into a different format that into Intune Win to have Intune deliver those applications out and having to wait for those cycles to complete. And that can take up to 2 hours or 24 hours. But if your application fails, because you're still installing an application on an endpoint, and let's be honest, application installation isn't without fault, that means that you'll have to wait until it resyncs or that we can try to push it again. And that in that case, I've seen that many companies are definitely losing grip on their application strategy.
Good. One more question. I think, some of the questions were asked while you were presenting, so some might be already answered, but I will question them still. How do organizations avoid the image spiral while they have hundreds of applications to manage?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly as we've been talking to. So take the global insurance company that were working with 48 images because their application virtualization strategy did not meet the expectations. So they had to keep on updating all of those applications on all of those different images. So and them being able to reduce by 40 images, that alleviates a lot of stress on that management team.
Good. All right. Some questions were, you mentioned during your session, your presentation, AppFi. We all know AppFi was announced as end of life. There's nothing happened since 2018, right? It was end of life, beginning of last year, end of actually the year before. Microsoft announced that we will not end of life it. However, the server component is going to be end of life within a month. The question is, how do you see solutions like FlexApp help your organizations transition, transition from away from AppFi?
Yeah. Yeah, gradual, I think, is the answer because nobody expects a big boom where you have all of your applications converted and up to date and update to modern standards overnight. However, we can convert AppV applications, and we have seen great results with that. Even in recent examples where we were able to test convert 30 applications within a week. So that is definitely something that we can look into. But I think flexibility is the answer here. So your AppV applications will not break when the support ends. So you just need a different mechanism to deliver those applications. So we can use Profile Unity to deliver those applications out just the way as they would have been before that by the server from AppV. And while you're at it, have your either convert your applications or have new versions of that application, package those as proper new Flex apps. So we can deliver those out in the traditional way that you would do it now. And within a short while, you should be able to get rid of your AppV estate, but very crucially, at your own pace.
Excellent. So again, another question regarding FlexApp. Now the question is FlexApp available for MDM solutions like, Jam for Apple or Salty for Android? The answer is no, right? But I want to hear it from you.
Yeah, no. So we only work on the Windows platforms, and to us, it doesn't matter where that Windows platform resides. So if that is a physical machine, VDI, or a cloud desktop. However, looking at Android and macOS is a very different architecture. So those applications will not be available there.
Another question is, you mentioned also during your presentation another product, Profile Unity. The question is, do we need Profile Unity to run FlexApp?
So there are two separate products with two separate licenses, although Morteza will happily tell you all about the possibilities of bundling that. But yes, we use Profile Unity as a delivery method. But if you do not require the rest of the capabilities that Profile Unity offers, then you can have a FlexApp application that uses the Profile Unity console, but you will only see the app delivery part that I highlighted.
Absolutely. Yes, there's two different products. They use the same console, management console.
Yeah.
They do share the same agent, but they could perfectly work separate to each other. We've seen it with
Yep.
the large insurance company you mentioned. They do not have any profile unity, but they, for the last 6 years, it's become 6 years now, using FlexUp to manage their applications. So we say yes, definitely combining them will help, but it's also helping your, manage your workspace. Another question is regarding the license structure. Are you licensed per applications? No, it is licensed per user. It's licensed per named user or concurrent users. So it's a yearly subscription license model. We're coming to, there's more questions, but, I promised that we will stop on time. So, for the folks in UK, you still, 15 minutes to go to your lunch. And for the folks in the other side, in the Central European time zone, you have another 15 minutes to have your sandwich. Thanks, Sandra, for the presentations. Again, if today's session raises questions about your own application strategy or how to simplify application delivery in your environment, feel free to reach out afterwards. We would be more than happy to continue this conversation. For now, I'd like to thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us in today's webinar, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.